Hi everybody, it's Jared O'D here from Dynamis, and tonight I'm talking with Gary Klugiewicz from Vistelar, and we're going to have a talk with you tonight about the upcoming Verbal Defense and Influence Instructor course that's happening here in the UK in October 2016. So Gary, you want to quickly introduce yourself before we get started on this talk?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Klugiewicz. I'm the Director of Training for Verbal Defense and Influence. Vistelar is a company that addresses the entire spectrum of human conflict. So we go from the verbal all the way through the physical. I focus primarily on the verbal, but as we'll talk in this program and in our class, is that we have to address much more than that. We have to get wider than just that. Little background before we get going. I spent 25 years at the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department. I retired as a captain. It had 800 officers at that time. I worked throughout the divisions. I worked on a freeway. I ran the Milwaukee County Stadium, a huge venue for for professional baseball games for 3 years. So I have some idea of dealing with crowd management. I worked in a jail several times because when you work for a sheriff's office, every time you get promoted, you go back again. And one of the most important part of going back to the jail is that for a period of time, I ran the special management unit, which is 350 inmates on psychotropic meds. So that gives me some background in crisis intervention. I've also trained in street survival seminar, which is world famous in terms of the work for Caliber Press, do street survival, and I've also joined most of the organizations around the country. In fact, I just got back from the ELITA conference, the International Law Enforcement Educators and Trainers Association, where we were actually able to have 750 officers got together for a week to train, and I will share some of those thoughts with you as well.
Fantastic, Gary. So we've been having lots of interesting discussions recently about some of the different ways in which communications and verbalization skills are really coming to the fore with a lot of different areas, and sectors. We've just had the IPCC report on use of force in policing that was issued here just last week. And I know that for the past probably year or more, you've been working in the US on a number of different initiatives that have come out in policing there. Could you maybe just run us through a couple of ideas that have really come to the fore in those reports that have been issued?
It's amazing in looking at the, what's going on in Europe and what's going around here. There's a lot of arrests, there's a lot of conflict, and it's amazing is that how much, people always say now they want to learn de-escalation. Well, the point of it is, yeah, we like to de-escalate a conflict, but we have to also look at the fact that what we want to be able to do is we want to have non-escalate. We don't want to start the negative dance. So very simply, how do you do that? How do you not start the negative dance? It's how you begin the interaction. But just for a moment, I think we should talk about the entire spectrum of conflict and talk about what we call the 5 C's. And the 5 C's, very simply, are the 5 C's of communication. And they say very simply is that you start out with, you have your initial contact. That's the first C. Then you have your conflict. Okay, where it's a verbal conflict. You have crisis where people are starting to lose it. And then you have combat where people are actually fighting, and then you have closure as we come down afterwards. The problem with a lot of training is that they only address the conflict. They don't deal with the front end, how to do initial contact, so you don't either start the conflict or you bring it down right away. And so I think that's very important.
Certainly. So, and since I've been working with Vistelar and the verbal defense influence methodology, I've become much more aware of the need to incorporate and integrate the verbalization skills along with any other training that I'm doing. So whether it's disengagement and breakaway type self-defense training, or it's physical tactics for controlling somebody and stabilizing somebody, or in fact, you and I have spoken about the need to understand how CPR and basic life support can also come into training. I know that that's a really strong sort of focus for you, is that all the training should be a continuum along those 5 C's?
Yeah, one of the things is that, in talking about this, is that we have to be able to mesh our skills. So we have to be able to go from contact to conflict to crisis, back down to conflict, back to contact, jump up from crisis to combat. But no matter what, we have to finish it up. And we don't do a good job about how to, at the end of the conversation, do you bring it down so that the next time you meet, you don't start round 2. What do you do? How do you actually operate so that you can actually, sir, are you okay? And again, and I don't care where you're working at. Is that, are you okay? Is it that I do for you? Next time we meet, let's talk a little bit more. Let's not fight. Let's talk. And that closure is so important at the end. But you have to mesh the skills. And I want to just relate, what I think is very important is that you talked about that CPR class. And again, it's an amazing CPR class where we went, this is police, but it could be anything, is that we went from talking to fighting. And as soon as we got the fighting, we had somebody come in with a red man suit on, and we actually had a big fight, took them down, stopped it, got that person out of there, got somebody just in normal clothing, had to stabilize them and cuff them. Then once that happened, stabilized and cuffed them, then we made him a pulseless non-breather, and then we brought in Rescue Annie, and they actually had to do CPR on the person. I mean, right in real world, you're meshing the entire, all the different levels from contact to combat to closure to medical care. You got to bring it all together. Otherwise, people get confused. They get caught in the different modules.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that we've seen in various incidents that we've had here in the UK that have gone to coroner's reports and things like that. So I'm referring specifically to the Jimmy Mubenga case, which was an immigration escort, and also this new IPCC report. It mentions that the need for this kind of scenario type training. And I know that in addition to those physical skills, which range from the medical to the physical intervention and restraint type skills, you're also a very strong proponent of actually training and drilling the verbalization components of these scenarios too.
Yeah, a lot of people say, talk nice to people who aren't talking nice to you. That works till the first person gets in your face and starts calling you a lot of names, and you get really angry, and you get very upset. What we have to do is not do fire talks, talk nice to people, but we need to do fire drills where we actually practice doing it. And we actually set up and we train scripts. So how do you make a good initial contact? How do you deal with verbal abuse? How do you listen well and ask questions to get more information to become truly empathetic? How do you paraphrase? How do you persuade someone who doesn't want to do what you want to doing? How do you bring someone down at the end? That's not a talk saying talk nice to people. That's rather a drill. And so just like you train CPR, you have to train this. It's just like you're trained for a police officer with a firearm, you have to train your verbal skills. And what's really kind of interesting is that around the world there's a lot of different things going on, but everything's pretty much the same. It's the same stuff going on. And one thing we realize in the United States is that 98% of all police contacts are verbal in nature. Only 2% go physical. Now those are the two that are critical, where you have people good life and death situations, but 98% aren't. We have to train for that 98% so we can push that up more. Rather than you be 98, I want 99, I want 99.5. But we can't do that if we don't train the verbal, because the verbal ends up leading to the physical.
Fantastic. And it's so important these days, isn't it? Because I think some of the issues that are coming out is that the amount of public scrutiny on public organizations, whether it's mental health provision in our National Health Service, or it's the how police deal with mentally ill persons or the emotionally disturbed persons that they deal with in the community. Or, just today I saw a video across my path on Facebook where a teacher was having to deal with being physically assaulted by one of their pupils in the US. And of course we have that in the news here recently. But the public scrutiny is a really big thing. So I think there's a lot of messages within verbal defense and influence about how, it's not okay just to be able to make your way through an encounter. You also have to make your way through an encounter in a way that's both professional and which leaves the other person feeling like they've been respected. And especially, so that's if you think the first party and the second party involved in that incident, but then there are all these third parties also observing the public service professional who's doing those things. And there's a lot of messages, I know that we've had discussions that verbal defense influence wraps up around that community engagement, and also the sort of treating people with dignity by showing them respect, part of EDI.
Yeah, it's amazing is that, a lot of times when we get hired, and if you look at our website, Vistelar.com, you'll see we're across 14 different disciplines, from teachers to bullying, to utility workers, to transit operators, to police, to corrections, to mental health, to healthcare, across the board. We have 14 different disciplines. But and most of the time we get hired to help with the customer contacts. But the truth of the matter is that some of the most important inroads we make in terms of improving everyone's life is not only with the customer, but organizationally, how to make the organization better, so that within the organization, you're treated with dignity and shown respect. And what happens when you go home, in terms of how to deal with your family life to make that better. And so it's across the entire spectrum here of not only of different escalations, if you will, but it's across the entire spectrum of your life, from the customer to your organization to your personal lives. This can help and make it better.
Absolutely. And, we have all kinds of different professionals who are dealing with situations in their work. So that ranges from care assistants to, nursing to the hospitals. And I know that you've worked with, for example, bus companies and so on, where really the issues start to become very focused on the same themes over and over again, don't they?
Yeah. And again, we talk about safety, and some people are focused too closely on safety. We talk about the physical safety. So we like the physical safety. Yes, you got to be physically safe first. Otherwise, what else matters? But the point of it is, then we have to be organizationally safe. You get all kinds of trouble on work. You have all kinds of customer service complaints. That's going to impact your organizational well-being. What about your legal? Because no matter where you work, you have the criminal kind of aspects that can be in, but also the civil. I remember back in 1986, I've been around for a long time. Okay, I did my first street survival seminar in Canada. And all the people in Canada said, man, all that civil stuff, forget all that stuff. You don't need to have that civil stuff. Man, they do what the police tell them to do. Well, we had the Montreal constable in the convenience store the next week. Next year, the video came off. And the next year I came back, people listened a lot more. Because it's a worldwide problem. People, if they feel disrespected, are not only going to resist you, but they're going to complain. And now it's all on video. Because remember now, whether it's a convenience store and you have the video out of the corner, whether you have the iPhone that they put up in your face, or whether it's your own body camera or squad camera, depending who you're working for, it's going to be there. It's going to be on video. And we have to look good on video no matter where this ends up.
Absolutely. One of the key things I think that, where people, and in fact, one of the statements that came out recently said that, often the staff, in this case, police officers, who are dealing with people who are having this emotionally disturbed moment, or people with mental ill health and mental illness, that the people dealing with them lack confidence. And I think we see that in a lot of different spheres. Regardless of the type of work, whether it's policing or in mental health even. And so I wanted to ask you about, how do we develop confidence in people to deal with people who are emotionally disturbed? And I know that there are, because you have a lot of experience, don't you, when you were running the mental health facility in Wisconsin and so on like that. So I was wondering if you would maybe talk about confidence for a moment and how we build it.
Well, see, first of all, let me share with you that at points in your life, everyone is mentally ill. We have long-term mental illness. We have brain-based disorders. We have people who are on drugs and alcohol or the aftermath, or we have people just on crisis now, and sometimes all three together. So all of us have to learn to deal with people who have mental health issues for at least a moment. And in doing that, what you have to do is that you have to learn how to do that. We have a program called PICI, Point of Impact Crisis Intervention. Because when we meet them the first time, we're not going to know all the things wrong with them. In fact, 6 months later, you're going to have 5 psychiatrists who's going to make this decision 3 to 2 of what they think they have. We have 3 seconds to figure it out. And so when we're meeting that person, what we have to do is we have to learn how to do that. And how you get confidence to do that is building competence. You have to get comfortable doing that by doing the fire drills, by doing by working with this, and by gaining more confidence. We talk about that when you walk out, anybody walks out into a room, there's 3 signs over their head. Okay, they're mathematical symbols: less than, equal to, or greater than. Less than is a very passive, the equal to is assertive, and the greater than is aggressive. And we're going to have these personalities that we're going to display and they're going to display. So one of the best ways that you can display better confidence is to look more confident. And that you can practice doing that, standing up straight, good eye contact, good stance, and engaging them. Practicing talking when you're a little bit stressed out, so you don't sound all freaked out. Those are things you can do to get more competence into what you're doing, and it's a matter of practice. I want you to all go back the first time you went to a CPR class. You might have done it, but it was very awkward. And now if you go back, it's a piece of cake, and now you can add more and more stressors to it. But that's what we have to do with verbal skills. We have to build the skills. It's like learning to shoot. First time we shoot, we have a hard time hitting our target. We have to shoot on a move, shoot in low light, shoot from different positions. That's all part of gaining competence. And the more competence you have, the more confidence you're going to have.
Absolutely. I mean, I know from my own experience of teaching verbal defense and influence here in the UK, it's often with people involved in social work or in healthcare. And one specific comment just a little while ago, which relates to this thing about practice and competence, is that, I went in on the second day of one of my courses, and the comment from an experienced social worker working with children with emotional behavioral difficulties, she said, this course is very different to anything we've done before. Usually what the trainer does, they come in and they give us these fantastic ideas about transactional analysis and parent-child relationship and lots of theory about how people should interact. But then they kind of tell us that you now have to go back into practice and take all this theory and make it work. As she said, the difference with our verbal defense and influence course was that I was giving them specific things to work on, and then giving them the time and the space to go and practice it right then and there, and to actually move their the muscles of their mouths and make sure that they got some practice before they go back to work. And before they're standing in front of an upset, distressed, or frustrated or angry person. And they really value that. And they thought that this was very different. But of course, it's really the bread and butter of what we do, isn't it, Gary?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing is that when you look at this, is that, we have what we call the cup card, the communication under pressure card. These are the 10 things we teach you how to do, the components. But on the back are the tactics that we not only would say these are the tactics you should use and show you to them, we have them practice them. We give you the card to go back and do it. One of the neatest things that people say about us is that a lot of people say you should be nice to people who aren't being nice to you. You should act professionally, but they don't show you how to do it. We're the how. We show you how to do it. We show you how to practice, and you can go home right that day and practice. Kind of amazing is that we have people, we do peace stories, where we actually talk about, people go and say what they're applying these tactics. And what we found out is that people go home that night and apply it with their family. Their kids have bad grades. You talk about that in the class, how to deal with someone with bad grades. Well, they had bad grades when they got home. You have conflict when you come home. And so you can use it that way. Or when you go back to the office. If you have to go to work, after the training, you go back and do it right then. It's all a matter of practicing. But now they know what to practice because we give them templates of how to best interact with people.
Absolutely, and I think the more that I work with the material, and the more I work with teams, the more I can see. And certainly, when I've worked, for example, with an emergency department team in a big hospital. One of the greatest places that they saw conflict was actually between the different professionals within the hospital. So you had emergency room nurses talking to the emergency room doctors. You had the specialist consultants coming in. You had the nurses from the emergency room talking to different areas of the hospital. And actually, I would estimate maybe 50–60% of their communication difficulties in that environment weren't coming from the drug seekers or the emotionally disturbed patients who were, if you like, the predictable vectors for conflict, but that actually, the staff and the professionals working on the same team also needed some of these tools to be able to deal with these difficult moments.
It's amazing is that some of our biggest problems come with people within our organization. But the point of the matter is that we always say, that we should treat people with dignity and show them respect. That's not only outside of the job, that's inside the job, and it's with our families. We have to do that. And again, but we have to show you how to do that. And again, we also have to be able to call people on this. We do a lot of things we call redirection. We deflect verbal abuse. So someone's angry, they get in my face. I say, sir, I appreciate the fact you're angry. I understand circumstances, I might be angry too, but I'm asking you, could you please stop swearing at me? I am going to always treat you with dignity and show you respect. I ask the same from you. Is that a powerful statement when delivered properly? You notice the tone, the face, the words all match, and it brings people down. Joe Lashley, one of the persons who really helps us a lot with brain-based disorders, in terms of his background. And, he always says that all behaviors equalize. So if you're yelling and screaming, the behavior will rise to you. If you bring it down, we do a lot of what we call reverse yelling. So just take it easy. It's going to be okay. Just relax. Take a breath. Now just talk to me. What's going on? Now, if you couldn't hear that, that's because no one hears that except him. It's called reverse yelling. And you just bring the whole thing down. You bring it all down. And guess what? You're modeling for them? Calmness. And when you do that, you get calmness back. And so whether that is with a patient, with a prisoner, with a criminal on the street, or with your family members, or your subordinate or your supervisor, guess what? That brings it down. We need to do that.
Excellent. And so I think supervision is a really important, a really interesting area where I think verbal defense and influence tactics could be used. And then it reminds me, I guess, to ask you about this whole area about ethical interventions and bystanders, and how we try, as part of this philosophy of showing people respect and creating an environment that's not compatible with violence, wherever that environment is, we've got to try and create an environment where violence really doesn't fit. But the role of the bystander is really important, and I thought maybe I could ask you just to speak for a few moments about that.
I'm going to answer your question, but I want to go a little aside first. I was just at this Alita conference, and it was a big discussion in the class. It was really quite good about the fact that we always say we want to look good on camera no matter where this ends up. And if somebody says, "Well, no, you should look," this shouldn't impact how your decision making. This should, And I said, "You're right," but very simply, if you're acting ethically, if you're acting professionally, you will look good on camera, and conversely, you won't. And unfortunately, we have some staff members who don't act good on camera for all kinds of reasons. And some are good people, some not so good. Some people are just in a bad place at a bad time. We have to be ready to step in. So I want to answer your question about ethical intervention. Is that we have to be ready to step in and do something before bad things happen. Because when the bad things happen, remember, you're always going to get asked the question, what did you see happen? Now, do you lie or do you tell the truth? Either way, you get yourself into trouble. So what you want to do is, I want to prevent it from happening. So I want to jump in early and stop it. I want to be we always talk about this, we're a caring watch. We're not Big Brother. We're a caring watch of each other to keep each other safe. We have to keep safe physically, organizationally, legally, and emotionally safe. We want to keep them safe, and the less drama we have at work, wherever that work is, the better off we're going to be.
What do you think will be interesting about coming to the UK to bring verbal defense and influence here? What's going to be interesting for you as the master trainer?
Well, I think it's good because I've trained in Germany before. I've trained in Mexico and Canada before, so I've been around the world in some parts. It's amazing is that no matter how much we're different, I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to prove itself once again how much we're alike. We have the same problems. We have a saying about tactical difference. It says at any step of escalation, no matter where you work, those steps of escalation are the same. What differs are the rules of engagement. So you have a teacher will be disengaging, whereas a police officer will be moving in. But the point is they have different rules of engagement. But besides that, you can have different environments: a hospital, a school, a bus, a jail, and you can have different applications. The different people are going to apply it different ways. But what we find over time is, I think it's going to be how much it's going to be the same, But again, I think it's also going to be what we're going to learn is that how much we have to be able to translate this to the different environments that we go into, that things are different in Great Britain than they're in Germany, they are in Japan, they are in the Middle East and in Africa and South America, North America. They're different, but still they're people. And one thing we always kid about is as long as we're dealing with people, our tactics are going to stay the same. Now, as soon as we deal with aliens, it's going to be different. But again, what's really interesting about our program is how much it applies even to people who are under the influence of crisis, of drugs and alcohol or mental health issues, is that it still works on them because everybody does better. No matter, this is one thing about our program. I don't care where you're from, what language you speak, what religion you are, what race you are, what culture you're from, what's your education level, how much you make. People all want to be treated with dignity and shown respect. And what we do in verbal defense and influence is show them how to do that and train them so they can go back and do it, not tomorrow, but before they leave the classroom, they got skills that they can take back and start enhancing.
Fantastic. And I think that actually reminds me of just one other question that I think may be really pertinent to our talk here tonight. And that is, in terms of a trainer who's coming along to a verbal defense influence trainer course or instructor certification, I think they'll find that the course is really quite broad in its delivery. There's lots of different ways that you've learned over your many decades, if I could say that, of delivering training. That Gary's really delivered an awful lot of training over his career. And for me, it was really refreshing to see just the many different ways in which you allowed and enabled people to practice and explore the topics. And I know that Vistelar is actually kind of specialist in using lots of multimedia and different ways to both bring learners in and then develop instructors after the fact. So I thought maybe I could ask you to talk about, if a trainer sat there and thought, what's in it for me with verbal defense influence and becoming a trainer, even somebody who's perhaps already qualified as a conflict management trainer here in the UK, what's going to be different and exciting about coming on a VDI course to become a trainer with us in October?
I think one of the biggest things we bring from us is the fact that we have something that's called emotionally safe, performance-driven instruction. Everyone says you should have activities. I mean, that's the big thing now, have activities. But no one shows you how to do them into meaningful activities that just say it's in busy work, but actually help them, train them to do what you want them to do. And so what we do is that we do not only the face-to-face, but we also make you call in. And so you actually call in scripts that you work on. You're going to be doing videotaping scripts. We're going to see you performing, not only you, but also your class, how to do that. And again, you brought up the fact that we're going to have all kinds of different times, all kinds of different ways of delivering this. Well, the neat thing about this is whether you have 6 minutes to do at a roll call or a staffing, or whether you have 3 days to do it. I mean, whatever time you have, we can show you how to put it together and apply it so that you can actually train your people to do what they have to do and support you in doing it.